Hi, I'm Jeff Sanford. We're here at the Canadian Business Economic Outlook 2009, and we're here with Roger Martin, the Dean of the Rotman School of Management. Roger, you released your latest report on Ontario's competitiveness and prosperity. I wonder if you could take us through some of the highlights.
Sure. The highlight is that we still have a major gap in our competitiveness and prosperity versus our U.S. peers of $6,500 in GDP per capita, which sort of in terms of any family's terms, it is equates to $9,200 a year in after-tax disposable income per family in Ontario. So that's a big and costly gap, and it's a gap that we think Ontario and all Ontarians need to get serious about overcoming, or it'll, if anything, just widen and put more pressure on us as we try to make this a fantastic jurisdiction in which to work and live.
Sure. Now you mentioned investing in kind of the sectors that are going to lead to future prosperity. Education is one of those. What, in your mind, is on the list of things that need to be done?
Well, yes, we need to invest in education. When we got into bad economic times in the early 90s, we really slashed educational spending while our peers in the U.S. kept on spending in that. And that's what I call an investment in future prosperity, as opposed to consuming current prosperity. Healthcare would be a good example. It's very important for the economy. Healthcare is tremendously important, but it's consuming our current prosperity rather than helping us be more prosperous in the future. We need to balance that more so that in the future we're more prosperous and can spend more than we would otherwise on healthcare and helping the poor, etc.
Sure. Now you mentioned, this gap really widened in the early 90s,
Yes.
through the 90s, didn't it?
Yes.
What progress have we made to narrow the gap? Have we made much?
We haven't made much.
Yeah.
What happened is we were even with the median of the U.S. jurisdictions that we compare ourselves to in 1989. Between then and 2000, we slid to minus 6,500. And since then, it's been back and forth and about flat since there. So the good news is that we arrested the decline. The bad news is that we're living with that, the results of that terrible decade. The 90s was a very bad decade for this province, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, things still don't look good, though, do they? I mean, if we look at what's going on in the manufacturing sector right now, we've got a bit of a downturn. What's it look like into the future?
Well, I think it's a time when nobody knows absolutely for sure. So I like to say any economist who tells you they know what's going to happen in the next couple of years is either lying or delusional, because it is so unique. But one thing I would encourage us not to think about is so much about manufacturing. Manufacturing has been on a decline in terms of the percentage of workers in manufacturing for a long time,
Sure.
decades.
Yeah.
And what's happening is the service sector is growing in size. And when anybody sort of quotes statistics and says, oh my God, we've lost this many manufacturing jobs, they think it's unique to our jurisdiction. It's not. It's across the entire industrialized world. There's just a transition going on in the economy. And what that means is that we have to have really high value-added services jobs. So computer services, financial services, all sorts of business services, arts and entertainment, all of those are service sectors that are becoming a bigger part of the economy.
Sure. And, but you hear an argument when you hear something like that the service sector kind of doesn't make up for what you're losing in manufacturing. Is that the case? Is it not the case?
That's not the case.
Okay. There we go.
And one of the, so many of the service sector clusters, industries, are very high paying industries. So people like to think that it's either manufacturing cars or flipping hamburgers,
Right.
and it's really that's really not the way to think about it.
Sure. One last quick question.
Yeah.
We're going into, it looks like, an economic recession now. How's that going to change the numbers that you look at? Do you think that'll change it? Will someone come out higher?
Well, it may be that, you see, what happened in the early 90s was we were terrible fiscal shape when we went into the recession, and it hurt us more, so we lost ground.
Sure.
We've gone into this in very, very good fiscal situation. The Americans, our peer states, have gone into it in terrible fiscal situation, and so I think there's a chance that because we have our house more in order, we'll do better in this downturn and not have to make the draconian kind of cuts that we did in the early 90s. That's the hope for Ontario. Man, I don't hope bad things for the Americans, but I think we'll be rewarded in part by having gotten our fiscal house in order at the Canada level and the Ontario level, both in the past decade.
That's great. It's the best economic news I've heard in a month. Thank you very so much for being here.
It's great to be here.
It's been Jeff Sanford at the Canadian Business Outlook 2009.